Hello, everybody. This is the PoliSciFiPod.
Hello,
Hello, I am Kyle.
and I'm Cody.
So, Scott Adams died today.
Don't know who that is.
He made Dilbert.
Okay.
And he spent the last several years going insane.
How so?
Oh, he went really it's a really 2016 thing, I think. Is when it got really bad. But he's like a big Trump guy. He's been into like some really nasty shit lately.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into like the full of it, but he's like he turned into a real right wing rage guy. I don't know if he was quite like one of them as bad as like Rowell. I mean, he was as bad as like Rowling or what's the British guy, Graham Linehan or whatever. I don't know that he probably was as bad as them. I just don't know if he was as prominent,
Yeah.
But yeah, it got confused. It confused me for a little bit because a couple days ago he said they did like there was like a news article. It was just like, and you got to keep in mind, like I've known him for the last 8 years or whatever, 8 to 10 years, being like a complete nutcase. So like when they release a news article saying a quote from Scott Adams, I only have a few days to live, I of course assumed he was on some sort of conspiracy bullshit. Because, people
Oh,
do
so
that.
they're trying to silence him and like yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I thought. Because guys like him, they do that occasionally.
Yeah, fair enough.
But no, apparently those articles were about him getting diagnosed with like stage 4 brain cancer. So like, no, he was like actually like only a few days to live.
It's it is the like very prominent theories coming up in the modern day where like, hey, maybe these guys are going insane for a completely different reason, and like we're just like ignoring the symptoms, like OJ Simpson, like after like his football career, people came out and were like, hey, maybe OJ Simpson's innocent because of like, well, not like innocent,
Yeah,
but like
not criminally
maybe
responsible.
he's got from like post concussion syndrome or whatever the medical term is from like football injuries, getting hit one too many times. But or the like the Rowling black mold theory, or like any of the like the fun ones that were like, haha, maybe the black mold is really telling whatchamacallit, like J.K. Rowling to write transphobic shit on the internet, but like everybody, like, it's with a grain of salt. But
Yeah, no, and I didn't like. I don't think it. I don't know how long he knew he had it.
yeah,
I don't know. It's I mean, I say this because like I really liked. I'm weird. I really liked the Dilbert comics for like a number of years. This was before, obviously, he got because obviously he was, once he gets into this shit, his shit goes downhill.
it
But
is
yeah,
really interesting to like
yeah,
contribute some of the, like, I saw the other day somebody who used like Bill Watson's like Kelvin from Kelvin and Hobbes.
oh yeah,
Somebody had pulled up one of his old comics, and I like to think that Bill Watson is not like a raging hardcore conservative who would attribute some of his work to like some of the
yeah,
current political climate, but Bill Watson has also been very quiet. He lives a very quiet life, and he tries and stays out of the political sphere. So like, good for him. Don't use this work to shit on your political opponents because they have differing beliefs from you. Like,
Yeah,
it's kind of very simple.
he is
Uh,
on record saying he doesn't like those little Calvin pissing on whatever brand name logos.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's I don't blame him, and I think wildly he should have some form of legal repercussions for like whatchamacallit it, product infringement,
Copyright infringement. Yeah, I don't
copyright
know how that.
infringement.
Yeah, there's probably a. I think there's a limited amount of that you can do, but I'm not sure.
I think he also rallied for a really long time against the comic industry for character and for rights and stuff like that. Like, oh, he should be able to like own some of the royalties or some of the whatchamacallits that he worked his whole life towards, and everybody was like, no, it's the papers that actually own the characters and stuff like that. So
But yeah, I have been sort of like mulling over doing like a thing on Scott Adams just because like a lot of the coverage of like his downfall have been like covered by like people that weren't a fan of his work,
hmm
which I think I could do something about that, but I don't know if like him dying like accelerates those plans or holds them off. I'll have to do some soul searching, and I don't know that he's a good enough person to like preserve his legacy or whatever. And but I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about it a little harder right now. It's I don't know. It's weird because yeah, just about how my parasocialness with the guy
and
and like
I mean,
yeah
it is a really weird position to be in. Like, there has been a lot of shit happening this week that a part of me is like, hey, we should be talking about this. We should be talking about this. And then there's another part of me that's like, hey, you know, we're PoliSciFi. You know, we're here to talk
yeah
about political science within the movie space or the book series space and stuff like that. And like, there's a definite place for it, but like, I'm really trying hard to like not sit here and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't invade Venezuela, or hey, maybe the secret police shouldn't be out here in the streets murdering people. And it is hard. It is a weird position to be in. Like,
like it's a weird thing where like I mean in a way some things are always topical, but I mean it's the question of this show is like whether this is a show that could be incredibly topical if we wanted it to be.
uh-huh. And for I think for the most part, we've never really stopped and like stopped each other and went. We wanted to go on a tangent about the current space, but like, it is it's drawing a line at some point in time, because I think that's an episode in itself.
Yeah, and like I I don't really want to do like like a news segment on the beginning of this show, even though I think like similar shows do stuff like that. It's like I mean, part of it's work, but I don't that there are guys that do that way better than me, and I'm
Mhm.
just not. Also, we don't produce this show on a regular enough basis that that's like a reasonable
Needed
thing to
thing,
do.
yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
because I have this does I've sort of made a decision where this is like, oh, this takes a backseat to me wanting to do writing stuff, and that's just how it is. But anyway, our topic today is the Death Star an effective weapon of war?
Yeah, I think we can end the episode now. Like, honestly, it's definitely like I've got the bigger stick than you, but like, in my opinion, like, why does that even matter? Like,
Yeah,
so within the movie like universe of Star Wars, uh, I'm at least talking from the movie universe. I don't know how badly the books play into the whole entire universe. I'm going off of like George Lucas's original trilogy. At that point in time, do they really even need a Death Star?
Um,
Like you
yeah.
legitimately just take fucking Darth Vader, you drop him off on the planet that you want, I don't know, deassembled.
Yeah, I mean, these are the questions we seek to answer in this episode.
Okay,
Yeah.
like I'm not insane. Like Darth Vader
No,
is
no.
like pre Death Star at that point. Because who's gonna stop him? He's like a one man fucking army. Like he's like the Commando Strike Force that you stick into the jungle to like overthrow like a current regime or whatever, and then install somebody that's like more loyal to your political interests. I guess would be the best way to describe it. Kind of like I don't know, the Bay of Pigs or anything that the Americans oil company executives really want you pushing.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I do have a section of this pod. I do have a section of the topics list called just dumbass American military.
okay,
But
fair enough. Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
fucking insane. This is
no,
like
no, you're
okay.
asking a valid question. I cannot stress enough that is a valid question for this episode.
Yeah,
Um, but we're gonna start with what is a super weapon?
sure.
Okay, this is a nebulous term, and honestly, anytime you get into military stuff, it always ends up being a nebulous term. It's like, oh, what's an assault rifle? What's a bomber? What's a battleship? What is
Hmm.
a mixed use fighter jet? Yeah, these are like there's always a bit of like room for argument here, and like a particular like specialized individualized definitions of words that always comes into play when we talk about like military weapon stuff.
Okay.
But I'm gonna define a super weapon just to define our terms here. Is like a incredibly powerful weapon that's meant to deliver war-ending blows without the use of like an on the ground army, and is meant to like end the war without yeah, end the war from far away. Yeah.
Or with less casualties on your side of the war, essentially, is
Basically,
basically, yeah.
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 Basically you want to be able to like throw a rock from the other side of the planet and like end the war.
Okay, let me just go off on like a side comment here because like I think between me, you, and like a whole bunch of other people from our perspective, like okay, World War II, uh, Pearl Harbor was completely like very badly retaliated by the U.S. Do you think that there was any point in time where the US said, hey, we are not going to drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, even though you have atomic bombs created?
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna yeah, because this is part of the question here. Because I'd say the only real life super weapon that like
Hmm.
fits our sort of definition is the nuclear weapon that
Sure.
that we have. Because everything else either doesn't do nearly that much damage, or has a lot more like is a lot easier to defend somehow for a lot of reasons. And like the end of World War II does bring in this age of the super weapon, and
Hmm.
it eventually ends up in this question of like, okay, why do we never use this again? And yeah, at the end of World War II, the Americans have been the first to crack this idea of a nuclear weapon. You done by splitting an atom and like dropping it from a big, dropping like a device from a plane that explodes and destroys an entire city, killing. I suppose it depends on where you drop it, but in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which were the targets, it killed upwards of 100,000 people apiece. I think I might be getting my numbers slightly wrong there, but the point is, it was incredibly deadly, and it's popularly understood as the killing blow against the Empire of Japan that caused them to back down and agree to an unconditional surrender. Now, to your question about like whether or not you use it at all, I think there's maybe a couple scenarios where it doesn't get used. It's some of it's wishful thinking, some of it's other stuff. I mean, the first question is like, obviously, what if FDR doesn't die before the end of the war? Does he make a different call than Truman does? Because I do think they are different people. Um, there was a discussion a bit about like, okay, well, we don't actually know how this works too good. Is this just going to ignite the entire atmosphere of nuclear fire? And they were they were pretty sure the answer is no.
So maybe to reiterate my question, like, I'm sorry, you don't assemble a gun and then threaten to use a gun. Is kind of my point. Like, if it was built, they were going to use it regardless. Like, there's no way in my mind that they go, "Hey, we've built this the ultimate death machine. We're not we don't plan on using it, but we need you to surrender before we have to," type ordeal. Like,
There was some discussion, and this is like the closest to like not being used, but like because obviously it did get used. There were like secret military tests in the middle of Nevada where like yes, a nuclear dome was like actually used, and even if nothing happens in Japan, they've done or nothing happens with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's like oh yeah, those still got detonated. But there was some discussion of like doing a more public detonation of one in like on an unpopulated island or something as like a show of because I mean at this point it's like oh yeah you've invented the nuclear bomb that could just be like a science fiction thing, which it was at the time. It was like the new like people didn't know that this was was like or people didn't know for sure that it would that a nuclear bomb was like a doable thing.
okay.
And but so like it was tossed around, but it was never but obviously they went in the other direction.
So is it fair for me to say that the destruction of Alderaan, I do believe it was in
Yeah,
Star Wars, like
yeah.
the planet that they blew up was their Hiroshima or their Nagasaki, where they're like, hey, we've got this, maybe come to the table type ordeal. Okay.
Um, okay, yeah, yeah, it is fairly similar because you do need to. There is does need to be some sort of practical public demonstration of the weapon being
Was
used
it
in order
public?
for it to be. Uh,
I thought they were trying to keep it on the hush hush.
I mean, once they use it on Alderaan, people know.
Okay.
But yeah, because yeah, that was like that was going to be like their whole thing. It's like, oh
Because
yeah, this is
because
yeah,
Because I thought at one point in time, maybe I'm misremembering the exact dialogue in the series, but I'm pretty sure there was a point in time where Luke and maybe a Han Solo pass where Alderaan should have been, and they're like, "Hey, there's no longer a
yeah.
planet here where there was supposed to be a planet. What happened to the planet?" Type ordeal. So maybe I'm misremembering how
Like
they
by
did this in the
public,
film.
I mean there was an announcement at some. There would be an announcement at some point in the future. Uh, yeah, I don't mean like. I mean, how many people observed it? But I don't know if there had been like an
Mhm,
all points bulletin on it yet. Just to discuss the Hiroshima and Nagasaki for a little bit, because like it is like in theory a demonstration of the effectiveness of the idea of a super weapon, that you can send this weapon that is incredibly powerful and it will cause like a enemy nation to surrender.
mhm.
um and like on paper, and this is like the line of the American military way of doing it is like, or an American way of mainstream American history is telling it, is that like this is the effect. This was an effective thing. This was the best way to do it. This was a effective use of a super weapon. But there's a couple things we need to consider here. So the nuclear. So in general, bombing civilians into submission is not a thing that works. You like it doesn't matter how many bombs you drop on a place. It doesn't matter how many people you kill. Um, Military targets are destroying military targets, and it's not as, and I'm not there's the caveat here that like it's not necessarily easy to destroy military targets, but there's an idea going around throughout the 20th century and going on to today, like people still espouse this, that you can bomb a nation into submission, and you just can't. You only ever win by military victories. Being able to bomb anyone on Earth at any time is not a fact that defeats wars. Like it didn't defeat. It wouldn't defeat the Axis. It doesn't defeat it doesn't defeat the Germans. It doesn't defeat the North Koreans and the Communist Chinese. It doesn't defeat Vietnam. It doesn't defeat Afghanistan. Either of the two times. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't defeat Iraq. It won't. It won't probably defeat Venezuela, and it will not probably work in the future. The nuclear weapon was the use of the nuclear weapon in Japan was the one exception to that rule. But there's a couple caveats here, in that the Empire of Japan was already cornered.
Yeah.
Like at this point, if the nuke wasn't happened, and because a lot of the American military didn't know about the nuclear weapon at the time, so vast swaths of the American military are planning to do a D-Day style landing invasion on Japan.
Hmm.
So like it's just a matter of like if the nuclear bomb never comes to pass, there's an invasion of Japan sometime in August of 1945, and then yeah,
That big line, I think I've seen it used multiple times
yeah.
where it's like, oh, it'll end the war in 5 years, or spare the war by 5 years and save millions of lives. Is that just a lie that
Uh,
is like basically propagandized into our
okay.
minds to justify a dropping of a nuclear
There's
bomb?
some I'm not going to say lie.
Yeah.
Exaggeration is definitely at play here, because
Hmm.
the big line for the American military is that if if a land invasion of Japan is going to cost 1 million American lives, which just for context, that triples the American death toll for World War II. The American death toll is in the 500,000 range. That would put us into the 1.5 million range. So in, it's an incredible amount of people. It makes it like way deadlier than like essentially it assumes that like invading Japan is going to be like orders of magnitude deadlier than invading Germany, and there's reasons to believe that's not entirely like a reasonable assumption. There is some math behind it. It's not complete bullshit. Like it would have been incredibly deadly. I like a six-figure number of Americans isn't like a crazy thing to assume. Whether that's a high six-figure number or a low or like a lower six-figure number, I couldn't tell you. There are, and but like, and I mean, yeah, at some point, to like, in order for the nuclear weapon to be effective a weapon of war, it does need to be used at some point. Which, I mean, I'm on record as saying is to use a nuclear weapon, you're going to hell. But yeah, in order for like this, there's some military assumptions that do draw a line to it being necessary. I don't entirely want to like discount them as total hogwash. I don't necessarily agree with them morally, but there is some logic there. There is also, if we want to get really cynical, there is the thing we need to bring up that by the time a physical invasion of Japan is on the table, the Russians or the Soviets and likely British British and Canadian forces, uh probably some Chinese in there too, um are going to be able to join in on it, uh possibly splitting up the death toll. But notably, to the cynical part of this, it would probably result in something where a lot more similar to what we see in Germany, where where we see a Japan that's split up between China, United States, USSR, and maybe the UK, which is probably something the American military wanted to avoid. But I think here's the other notable thing we need to consider about this events, just to carry over, is that uh, I don't think the nuclear weapon works if the situation is reversed. Like I think if I don't know if we can honestly say that in a reverse scenario where there's like a Shibuya project or something where Japan develops nuclear weapons and then flies them over the Pacific Ocean and it manages to bomb like San Jose or in Portland or something like that, and like a very similar thing. I don't think that causes the American military surrender. All other things about the World War II conflict being the same at the moment. Like, I don't think you defeat a more stable military force through this method. And there was,
Sure.
yeah, and when you do get into the inner workings of the final days of the Empire of Japan, you do see that the council that runs the country is like basically 50-50 for surrendering. And it just
Mhm.
and basically the only reason there wasn't an earlier surrender is some the Japanese trying to secure some things, and some miscommunication, and also some stubbornness within the Japanese government of those who did want to stay in the war. The deciding vote in the surrender is performed by the emperor, which is quite unusual because the way the council works in this situation is that the emperor only actually comes in if he needs to break a tie. So there was going to be a surrender and it could have happened like a few days earlier conceivably if some better communication had happened
Well,
or so.
that is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
in the movie Star Wars, I feel like the Death Star has diminishing returns at
Yeah.
some point in time. Ultimately, it's a giant fucking target, which we see in the films. There was obviously some engineering issues that we also see in the films. Like,
Yeah. And this is where I feel the Death Star honestly because all that thing I said, all those things I said about the about Japan, about why the nuclear weapon worked in this scenario, none of those things are present in the scenario we see in Star Wars. In any of the times any of the Death Star types weapons are used on screen, it doesn't. Yeah, this count, and I'm counting the uh, the events of A New Hope, the events of Return of the Jedi, and the events of Return Awakens, of the Force Awakens, and I'll even count the Rise of Skywalker just because we're throwing stuff in. But it's falling victim to this idea that was very present, and perhaps even George Lucas might even know some of this. He's a bit tight-lipped on some of his things that he needs to believe for this series to be ideologically consistent. But he might know a little bit about this, but the Death Star does fall victim to this military doctrine, which was plaguing the entirety of 20th century warfare since the invention of the actually a little bit before the invention of the airborne bomber, that you can bomb a civilization into submission. Because honestly, I mean, the Death Star's not a bomb, but it kind of does work the same. You're firing it from a long way away, and it's destroying massive amounts of stuff. Bombs are a useful weapon of war. It's just that, especially back then in the 40s, and we're only really now starting to correct this issue, and only in certain scenarios it gets a lot more, I think some of these questions get a lot more complicated when you're dealing with an actual equally prepared war scenario. But precision bombing is actually a very tall order, and especially a tall order when you're doing it in the 40s with non-computer operated bombs. It's actually incredibly difficult to manage to destroy military uh, targets with a B-52 Superfortress or whatever. This proves a very difficult thing. So some people, notable in every military of the war, I'll state, gets this idea that like, okay, we can bomb civilian targets and that'll eventually convince people to surrender. And this assumption is false. It only ever pisses people off.
Hmm.
Like it only ever like makes it only ever radicalizes people against the people that are bombing them from the air. Because in order for this theory of bombing people in submission to work, you need it requires the victims of the bombing to make this ridiculous mental leap that I am not mad at the people bombing me from the sky. I am mad at myself for like bothering to piss them off. It requires them to treat you like God, basically, is like, okay, I just need to be more devoted to the guys on the other side of the planet, and then they won't bomb me, which is not a logical leap that people will make of other human beings. It's not
I'm
happening.
I'm kind of going at this in like a very historically accurate sort of way. So when I'm looking at stuff like bombing, basically it is the equivalency of like 14th century archery, where you're like, hey, I want to kill a guy that's far away over there. Um, how can I do that? And then I'm applying that to like siegecraft. You're
Yeah,
going to have a lot of casualties if you are just shooting arrows into a general direction and hoping they kind of low key hit their targets. So if I'm sitting there and like, I don't know, my peasants that are being like forced into a siege are getting hit, I don't know, like, yeah, I'm assuming the peasants aren't going to exactly be happy about that. But like, how do you stop precision bombing at this point?
uh I
Like
mean,
anti-air missiles.
there's
There's
some you can do.
the United States has this golden dome idea that they tried to blackmail Canada into joining for like $20 billion or something like that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do, and like basically, I mean, the big problem with nuclear weapons in our world is basically is just like, oh, at a certain point, everyone got them, and like
Mhm.
if you fire one, someone else is going to do it. So, if we make the idea, if we build enough nuclear weapons, then no one can use them. Which, yeah, which is, I mean, is a great idea up until we all die, if possibly. So, I mean, I was watching like there was recently a Behind the Bastards episode on like the history of bombings of like the like mutually destruction, and he basically referred to the episode as like this is a history of like Schrodinger's bastards because like a lot of these guys, if their theory is correct, it's like I don't know, it's not necessarily so bad, but if they are wrong for even a second, we are all dead.
Yeah, and I think there's been a couple of really fucking close calls where the U.S. has basically just lost nuclear weapons somewhere over like uh, Ohio or something. I can't really exactly remember the exact place,
Yeah,
but
there's a
yeah.
couple where like thankfully, I mean the nice thing about nu- the nice thing about nuclear weapons is they don't really go off unless you like tell them to.
Yeah,
Like if like one gets into like a car accident, it's not good,
yeah.
but it won't do the nuclear bomb thing.
Hmm.
Like I'm not saying like that's a good scenario when like when like a nuclear bomb falls from a plane that has not been armed, but and like there was an incident where like a weapon where like a plane with a nuclear bomb on it did explode, but it had not been armed and it was just like terribly radioactive. It's not a good thing, but it is you're not going to Nagasaki yourself by accident.
Okay, that's promising. But there's been a couple very close calls. I think Hawaii was a very good example of this, where their test stuff went off, and apparently, basically for the next 10 minutes, everybody in Hawaii, including at that point in time Jim Carrey, because I think he was there during that uh, nuclear test malfunction. He got the text message and basically was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go down to the beach and just like enjoy the fucking sunset or whatever." But like there's been a couple of times where that happens. There was a point in time where um, like Russia picked up the fact that there was a potential nuclear bomb being launched. I'm pretty sure it was just a test, but at that point in time, like you're in a mutually assured destruction pact. So if they shift the whatchamacallit, then it's like one domino falls, and then you're sitting there preparing for the rest of the dominoes to fall because that's gonna come. So the guy decided basically, I'm not gonna launch my nukes, and saved us all at that point in time, considering it would have been bad. Yeah.
It's not a good system, or it's not a comforting system. And like I
Yes.
said, I think I summed it up pretty well. They are either right about how this system works, or we are all going to die. Uh, like that is just the end of it. And that's not nice. So yeah, again about the Death Star. Yeah. So I mean, we do see in Rogue One where like some members of the rebellion do recommend start rolling over at the existence of this thing, but it does like I think even if they don't destroy it, it does just sort of piss off like the rest of the galaxy. Cause like, yeah, you like no one's at safe at that point, but yeah, it's not a thing that you can let be around, which is why they kept the thing so damn secret, is because you cannot let this thing exist because it's just like so deadly, and there's no reason to like again it comes down to this real life factor, which like fear is not actually an effective weapon of war. You can't actually scare somebody into like being a slave. um
Mhm.
some people some people might, not everybody, not enough people.
Which, which also brings me to my next point. It really does depend on who's like basically holding the gun to your head, in my opinion. Like the Emperor in the films, I don't think they show him evil as much as they probably should. I don't think that he is trying to squash the rebellion, and he's doing it as efficiently as possible. And I say
Yeah,
that with like a grain of salt, and in like that's the worst sentence that I think
yeah,
I've said so far. But like it's a very targeted strike. He's not just going out and just like blowing up random planets by like a lottery system. He's not destroying, he's destroying the heart of a resistance.
yeah. But I mean, obviously the counterpoint is they do just sort of like I mean, people are going to realize that like, wait, they blew up Alderaan because like like the leaders of Alderaan were like really pally with the rebellion. I don't necessarily control how my leaders of my planet function. I better not.
Mhm.
I don't like this thing. I gotta destroy this thing before they eventually decide to come for me. Because it's no longer this hypothetical. It's just like, oh, and what if it's like not something that's serious? And what happens if it's just like, oh, there's like 20% of your planet is in the rebellion? Oh, well, you're dead.
Yeah.
Might as well join them.
Yeah, and that's good. That's also what I'm kind of getting at is like we don't see any like other. I guess you might have seen more Death Star action than I did, considering I'm just going off the basic trilogy, and it only happens once or maybe twice in the first trilogy there.
They fire it a handful of times, but like, and I think there is a like what if comic sort of thing where they do like what if Luke never blew up the Death Star, where they like do demonstrate a few things. I forget exactly how it goes. It's kind of cool. It's kind of really neat. Yet neat actually. Yoda crashes the Death Star into Coruscant in that.
Huh.
Yeah, that's how that ends. Spoilers. Uh, uh, but
But my whole point is like we see the the end goal of the resistance in the first few films where it's like, okay, well, we're gonna destroy the Death Star. We're gonna get the Death Star plans so that we know how to destroy it. But how is it any different if we gave the resistance a Death Star? Like, are they gonna dismantle it, or are they gonna use that
uh,
weapon?
yeah, I again, I don't think the rebellion could use it to end the empire either. Frankly, uh,
Yeah.
I think I think there's no way that like Palpatine lets himself get caught up in gets caught up in all that. But yeah, like it's the same as what I said earlier. But I kind of want to talk about like some of the unique things about like Death Star warfare that I like
Hmm.
thought up of just like I have some questions just that I had. I had this thought of like maybe as part of this is like a question of planetary destruction in general, but like is it something to consider when you're blowing up planets that like are there a finite number of breathable worlds? I mean, probably. Like that might not be something you want to keep an eye on. It's like, oh, does this become like an environmental thing? Do these things need to like refill their oxygen manually? This becomes like, oh, can you like just use this to destroy a supply chain? How far does like food like how close by does like a big food development center need to be in interstellar life? These are questions that become very relevant if a Death Star is in play because you can like pull that off the table like oh, this is where like this entire sector that I don't like is getting their food. Well, you can permanently put that off the table. And like that then that sector never has the same amount of food production again.
Well, even
And similar questions like that.
so, my argument here is like not even like food based. Like in the Star Wars universe, I do believe this was prior to, so this would have been the Clone Wars, where there is the planet that is being made. The clones are being made.
Hmm.
You
Oh
just
yeah.
Death Star that one, and then there's no more army.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely. This yeah, similar questions all around. Like this becomes a problem and like again, this is why like I don't think the Death Star ends the rebellion because this is a thing that cannot be allowed to exist if you want like normalcy to be a thing.
sure.
Like there is no way you can control the entire galaxy like that. And this is like obviously like the demonstration of like Palpatine's arrogance. You can't snuff out rebellion. That's the entire point of the 9 movies. Anyway, I think yeah, what other questions did I have? And okay, so I watch a good bit of Star Wars lore content because I am a nerd, and I gotta put the okay. So in like a lot of discussion, like in galactic history, like in universe, it is later on considered that the people who are just like, oh, the Death Star isn't actually like a good idea. And like, if you don't think the Death Star is a good idea, you're suddenly looked upon by the lore as like this big smart guy who's just like, oh yeah, obviously the Death Star wasn't going to work. Which, I mean, I've just said why the Death Star obviously isn't going to work. And there's also like so many resources were put into making this thing. Like it's incredibly like resource intensive. But I got to point out, using like invading the entire universe isn't an easy task. Building like enough star destroyers to be present in every corner of the galaxy is not an like almost certainly not a less cheap task. Getting like is like fielding an army of 20 billion people is not going to be easier than building a Death Star. I'm sorry, that's just the fact of the matter. And like it's yeah, the Palpatine was going to be wasting a bunch of money on military hardware anyway. I don't think there's a way around that. Yes, a lot of bad, like major guys were killed with the Death Star. There is a bit different, definite putting too many eggs in one basket thing going on here, especially when you get to the second Death Star where you put like every like the remaining like senior members of the government on the Death Star and it blows up. But I mean, A, that's an avoidable task, and B, like destroying the first Death Star wasn't a killing blow against the Empire. They actually were incredibly like threatening years after that destruction happened. And I don't know that like discounting it as an idea is like this proof of like military genius of like, oh well, this is yeah. I don't think like you can actually be like, oh yeah, no, obviously this is going to go wrong. I don't think that makes you smart. I'm gonna be honest in universe, but yeah, I like like in its defense, I don't know like my problems with the Death Star are less than whether or not it's like the most effective way of subjugating the military. It's just that trying to do military subjugation in an entire galaxy is in the end a fruitless exercise that will inevitably result in failure given time. Yeah, it's just how it is. You're not going to be able to like oppress everybody forever no matter what you do. Is honestly the lesson of the story. Unless you're prepared to kill everyone in the galaxy, it's not happening. I think that's a lot of my spiel.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't see how any other form of like warfare is gonna actually stand here. Because I brought up Darth Vader. You
Yeah.
know, he's one person. You drop him off in one place, he kills everybody, he leaves. Resistance is just gonna rise up from the
Yeah.
ashes.
There's only so much you can ever do.
Yes, you're always gonna
Um
get a resistance.
yeah.
Which is kind of my point exactly
Yeah.
when we're talking about current events.
Yeah.
There's going to be ramifications from
Yeah.
what's happening in Venezuela right now. Hate to
Yeah.
say it, but
Yeah.
this
Um
idea that people are celebrating in the streets of Venezuela, in my opinion, is American propaganda being pushed.
yeah, and I have some serious questions about like how much American military like they say the Americans are going to run it, but I have some questions about how much American military presence is actually on the ground, and I don't know that I've gotten a good answer. Um,
Mhm.
at least not something they've like really effectively put into the media just yet.
Sure.
But yeah, and I mean it also just speaks to like, oh yeah, invading places is hard. Just striking decisive military blows that change things forever, easy. It happens every day, not hard. To go back to Iraq, killing Saddam Hussein was the easy part. At least for something of the American military, the size of the American military. Yeah, in some of the later stuff, they do develop in like the expanded universe. They do develop some like other super weapons. They develop a thing that eats planets, which is same dumb bullshit. And then there's like a thing that blows up stars. I don't think that does meaningfully more damage than uh, the thing in Rise of Skywalker, or no, in Force Awakens, the Star Killer weapon. I think that's functionally, except the thing in the expanded universe was like a lot more portable, which made it harder. No, I think that's it. I don't know if there's some other thing, but I think we've said our bit. Short episode this time.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to add to this.
Yeah, no, thanks for listening, guys, and ladies, and other in between stuffs that I think. Did we have a definitive thing we were going to do next? Did anyone call dibs yet? I think.
No, not that I'm
Oh
aware.
wait, I think we. I think there was something. Oh,
For
I remember it now. It's on here. I texted it to you because I wanted to keep it in mind. It's Kyle and Cody called CinemaCast review. I texted it to you. I'm trying to find it in the chat. Oh yeah, Kyle and Cody's called CinemaCast in I don't know, a couple weeks or something. Uh, reviewing. Yeah, we're almost done, and we're gonna review the film Gotcha from the '80s. I think '85. Because I have interesting things to talk about.
and that's for the cinema cast, eh?
Yeah. We're just reviewing. It's because this movie had a controversy around it, and I want to talk about the actual movie.
Okay.
Yeah, uh, it's about toy guns. Yeah, follow us on like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me on Bluesky at Lord Brokenshire. Buy my book, the Pennsylvanian, which can be found on most major online booksellers. But yeah, see you soon. Stop.